Good evening and welcome to the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. This is episode 94. Thank you very much for watching tonight. I've been waiting for this show all week. I'm very excited. I'm so happy that you all can join me as we're going to be talking to the BCBC 2021 winner, Matt Miller, and have a great conversation about contest play. For those of you watching, please make sure, if you have not, please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right hand side of the screen. And after you do that, hit the notification bell so you know when new content will arise. Of course, you can follow me as you see on my name tag there on Twitter at HKravitz. And also on the scroll in the bottom, you'll see my email. Any comments are appreciated about the show, hkravitzhorse at gmail.com. If you're joining us live tonight, we're going to have a very lively discussion. We really welcome all of your questions about the Breeders' Cup, specifically to Matt Miller regarding contest play, as the BCBC was a live money contest. But if you have any questions about horse racing contests, how you get into them, different types of contests, strategy, anything you have, please make sure you post those questions on the top right hand side of the screen. We welcome your comments. We're going to have a lot of people watching tonight, so we appreciate all of those comments. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Again, my race day blog. We had a fantastic race day blog for the Breeders' Cup. Had a bunch of hits. Aloha West, Love's Only You. Charmaine's Mia as a long shot finished third. Modern Games, oops, that didn't count. Well, nothing I can do about that. Anyway, a lot of great scores. Please make sure you subscribe to the Race Day blog. The information is on the screen or down below the video player in the description. There's more information about how you can sign up for the Race Day blog through Patreon. It's inexpensive. It's a great value. Highly recommend you do that. I really think it will be to your benefit in the long run. Also, please make sure on the bottom of the screen there is a like button. There's a thumbs up. There it is, our thumbs up button. Smash that like button. Again, what that does, it tells YouTube that this was an excellent video, that you enjoyed, and that other people should watch it. And so when people will type in the search bar, for example, horse playing contests or BCBC, this will be one of the first videos that will pop up if we get a whole bunch of thumbs up buttons. So please smash that like button. I greatly appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're planning going about an hour, but I love to talk, and our guest loves to talk about horse racing contest play. So we'll see how long this goes. But this is one of those shows, folks, you need to grab a paper and a pencil. Of course, you'll be able to watch the replay on my YouTube channel, but if you're watching live, or even if you're watching as a replay, grab that pad of paper and a pencil, because we're going to have some great information for you from someone who's done it already. And he won the BCBC last weekend. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to proudly present the 2021 BCBC champion. I believe, I could be wrong, doing his first live interview since he won, Mr. Matt Miller. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing terrific. I'm truly thrilled and honored to be here. Thanks.
I'm sure you're on cloud nine. Your head has probably been spinning. It's been a crazy few days. Before we get into you personally, talk a little bit about these last few days have been like for you.
Yeah, you're obviously never prepared for this. This is a tough competition, 520, 530 people. And you can have as much confidence as you want in your picks, your strategy. No one in their right mind really thinks that this is going to happen. And so, yeah, it's been amazing. And, I'm going to put in, Howard, a nice word for you right away and say a lot of the fun of this has to do with the people you're surrounded by. I sat at a table, the tables were a little fluid as the day went, but Brad Anderson, Joe Rumpolo, Howard, you were there for a whole bunch. And honestly, those people around you make it so much more fun. There's a lot of bouncing things off of people. And then those are the people you want to celebrate with afterwards. So it's a very collegial group. Howard, I think you'd agree with me that if you don't win yourself, you're kind of hoping one of the people with you does. And I think the excitement was really genuine. So it's a plug for these contests in general. The camaraderie is totally real. Once you get past the fact that you're not going to be the one to win, it makes it very easy to root for the people you're with.
Yeah, for sure. I was just honored to be in your, circle of friends and group, and we'll get into that as the show goes along. But I had a front seat, to Saturday especially, and had many conversations with you as the day went along. We'll talk about those conversations in detail. So before we get into the contest specifically, Matt, there are a lot of people that are probably not familiar with you. So let's very quickly, you'll see questions on the bottom of the screen. And again, probably answer somewhat briefly because we do have a lot of things to talk about, and then people get to know you a little bit better. And of course, my famous 10 minutes of post Q&A rapid fire questions will be coming up a little bit later. And then, of course, we'll get into our specifics of the 2021 contest itself. So, Matt, first of all, where are you from originally, and how did you become interested in horse racing in the first place?
Okay, so brevity is definitely not a strength of mine, so you'll have to keep me honest on that. I'm from the Chicagoland area. I was born here, went to college and law school around here. I'm going to just get right into it and say horse racing for me started with Grandpa Mike. He enjoyed going to the races. He was thrilled to have a grandson that wanted to go with him. If I'm being honest, and if he's looking down on me, I'm going to apologize. I don't know that he was particularly good at this, but he certainly made it very fun to go with him. He also taught me on, all the different ways you can tell people that you broke even, all the different kind of funny math you can do to achieve that result. I did the harness races a while when I was in high school, but I'd say for me, the thoroughbreds picked up probably when I started getting interested mainly in pick sixes and in Arlington Park. So I don't know, 10, 20 years I've been doing this, but contest play in particular has been probably the last 5 or 6.
Before we get into some other questions, just want to point Trish Smith. Trish is one of our great viewers of the show, Matt. Are you kidding me, Trish? I am so motivated. I wish I qualified for next year's NHC and the BCBC and what they were like tomorrow. I will be aiming towards the NHC, but Trish, for reasons that Matt's going to explain later, I really like the BCBC more. And everyone has a different opinion. But yes, I will be trying to get an NHC. Matt, another viewer that I think you know this guy, Brad Anderson, the champ, is in the house. Life is pretty darn good, I would say, Brad. And just while we have Brad up on the screen, you mentioned him as well. He was a good friend. He was with you for most of the tournament, was he not?
He was, and we've done a bunch of these. We've traveled together. We've sat at each other's table. We've had a terrific time. And look, props to him. He's the winner from a couple of years ago. So it's crazy to be surrounded by anybody. Again, you don't really think that's going to be you. I've got such massive respect for the tournament and for the field. These are 520, 530 of the sharpest horse players around, and whether they put down cash to enter or whether they won their way in, every one of these people is formidable.
There's another. I hope you don't shed any tears during this broadcast, but someone I think also is watching. Allison, thanks for watching the show. Yeah, Go Dad is right. Allison, really appreciate it. Don't be a stranger, Allison. Let's watch more of these. Is it strange to see like family members and friends like commenting as you're live on a podcast?
Look, I'm not trying to get in any trouble with family, but for the most part, I can't remember a time that they ever wanted to hear anything of this nature.
Well, they're interested now. I think there's about 500 and some reasons why. We'll get into that a little later also. All right. I think this would be an interesting question that I came up with. Does your full-time job relate to numbers and analytics? And if it does, whether it does or doesn't, are there benefits when it comes to betting on horses for people, even if it's not you, that are math related to some extent in terms of betting on horses?
Yes. So if you really knew me, and my family listening, my friends listening will all start laughing at this point. It's just in my nature. I am a risk reward and then strategist kind of person. That could be about picking up the car rental at the airport as much as it could be about race selection or bets or whatnot. I'm an attorney, I'm a corporate attorney. So obviously the risk side, plays a lot into that. There's not a lot with numbers and analytics in my job necessarily, but I've been proficient in that area for a long, long time. It's funny looking at a picture of my kid before. I've told these kids forever, if you're doing life right, math plays a role every single day. You don't necessarily pull out a calculator for it, but you're constantly evaluating probabilities, whether something is worth it doing or purchasing or whatever it is. And I think a ton of that translates right to the horse races.
Well, as you know, I'm a high school math teacher for almost 25 years. So obviously, math is a strength of mine, and there's no question. It certainly helps. You can win, contests and do well in horse racing without a math background or really knowing, percentages and etc. The odds are there for you on the screen. But if you want to really do the deep dive and understand behind the scenes, and especially when it gets into contests, it would be really helpful for all of you watching to at least have some idea or gain more knowledge on how parimutuel betting works and how the odds are created, etc. What aspects of live money contests fits into that personality and betting profile?
Every aspect of it, to be honest. So, let's talk about the BCBC versus the NHC for a second. I hope no part of what I'm saying comes off as overconfident. I'm going to focus on the NHC first and say that is a pickers contest. You don't have any betting strategy whatsoever, in all honesty. You pick
Sorry to
up.
interrupt, but you're going right into my next questions. You can see, so please continue. You
Perfect.
you read my mind. Did you
Perfect.
did you see my questions before we
I just
talked?
had a feeling, but no, I didn't. So you get to a contest like that, and you're given mythical win and place bets, or some of them are win place show. So you just identify a horse. Yes, the odds matter because you get those odds in your mythical bets, but you don't have to get creative around daily doubles, trifectas, exactas. I would say the NHC is a handicappers contest. It may surprise your listeners to hear, and I'm not kidding, I would consider myself about a B minus handicapper. And that's being a
Wow.
tough grader. If an average is a C, I think I'm slightly above average. I'll be a little bit less humble when it comes to the betting and the strategy. I think I'm going to get a solid A in that category. But
I would say so.
in the handicapping arena, look, I walk into the NHC, and if there are 700 people there, with no disrespect intended to 100 of them, 100 of them probably aren't following the rules or doing something right. But of the other 600, I'd give myself about a 1 in 600 chance. I truly don't feel I have any advantage. I have any special skill. I feel wildly different in the context of a cash money tournament. And we'll get into all those reasons.
Yeah. Um, folks, we're going to talk briefly about some of my plays in the BCBC after Matt goes through his plays. But as I've learned, Matt, especially this is my first BCBC. I mean, there's so much information out there, right? I mean, I put 8 hours of content out there on my podcast. I think we did a great job through 5 shows. I know you're a big fan of In the Money and Peter Thomas Forental, as am I, as I work for them as well, and they do a great job. But the fact is, there's a lot of really good content out there. There's a zillion videos you can watch. If you type in Breeders' Cup, selections on YouTube, you get there's like 200 videos out there. So I agree. It really comes down a lot to strategy, and that's why we're going to be focusing on that a lot tonight. Of course, you have to pick the right horse, but still, a lot of people are picking the right horse. It comes down to how you're going about, your bets and whatnot. So let's jump in here, Matt. So talk a little bit about your BCBC experience. You had a big score in 2017 outside of the tourney, and feel free to give any detailed information that you're comfortable with. But then also, typical of a lot of champions, not only in contests but in sports and business, there were some failures that came along the way in last year in 2019.
Yeah, you left out 18, which was also a failure. So
I was trying to be nice.
It's a humbling game, and I'll be funny about it. I love, I'm a Chicago native. I've loved going to Arlington for years. Just getting to the humbling part of this for a second, I've enjoyed taking coworkers to Arlington, a little mentorship, a little friendship, whatever. Go ask them at the end of a typical day if they feel they were sitting next to a champion on any level. As I lost 6 races in a row, they could have done that on their own without a problem. So the reality is, you do have to get up for Breeders' Cup Day a little differently than a typical day at your local track. But the bottom line is, it's a tough game. And I do believe in this tournament in particular, there are some strategies that are extremely effective year over year. I'm going to pick on the 2020 failure that you've identified. Look, you tell me how much of a failure it felt like. I don't remember the exact specifics. I got to the Classic with, I think, a balance somewhere in the 20s. Or, maybe this was doubles from the turf, but in any event, I had a nice balance going. These tournaments are won in the last race, period. It was obnoxious listening to how often I would tell people, I don't care what the leaderboard says. I paid attention to the leaderboard for one purpose only, and that was making sure that the target I had in my head hadn't yet been exceeded, so that I needed to raise the bar even further. So look, I'm getting right into it now when I say, well, I'm going to stick with the failures for a second. 17 was terrific. I went with a terrific friend. I know this is an outrageous statement in the context of having just won the BCBC. It might have been just as fun with him. We picked a ton of winners between the two of us. And I would say from a contest standpoint, I'm not thrilled with 13th. I think that the Matt Miller of today would have done better then, but to some extent you need to learn. And I was fortunate in 17 to get paid a lot of money to learn some valuable lessons. Usually it's the opposite. I am not usually someone at the BCBC who plays cash on the side. I see people do that all the time. I don't really understand. It feels like you have an awful lot riding as it is.
Guilty as charged, Your Honor.
And look, I also think it takes away from your focus a little bit. Speaking for myself, that BCBC balance of $7,500 or 15,000, if you have 2 entries, that's more than I go to the track with normally. And I don't, we'll talk about my play. My normal play looks nothing like this of any kind. And so you have to get into a different headspace to do this.
Sorry to interrupt. You had a big score in 17 in the early pick 5, and that's sort of, you put that I know you put a bunch of that in the bank and said, this is the money that I'm going to be using for X amount of years for future tournaments, correct?
Correct. I went home. Wife couldn't have been any more happy. And I said, look, in terms of uses for this money, if there's something you'd like, let's go do that or whatever. But honestly, I would love to use this to just fund doing this for the future on a kind of guilt-free basis. Obviously, as time has gone on, things have changed a little bit. But yeah, that was the original score was really, I looked at as kind of my entry ticket to this for as long as I felt like.
And then if you just talk a bit about 19 and 20, more specifically last year, you were explaining you had a double that you told me about. You just picked the wrong horse in the Classic and zeroed out, and you're willing to take those chances.
I was alive to improbable. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was maybe to about 125,000.
Wow.
And look, turning for home, I actually thought I had a pretty good chance at it. I wasn't expecting Authentic to just hold on. And I finished tied for last with 0 with hundreds of people. Look, on some level, I consider it a successful tournament. To get into the starting gate in the Classic with a horse that can get you to 6 figures and potentially pretty high on this leaderboard is not an easy thing to do. And it's an amazing feeling. And I do think over time, if you get enough horses in that starting gate, and if you're a decent, even a B- picker, you will get your share of wins. But the trick is, how many at-bats does it take? Luckily for me, it didn't take that many at-bats. Last year, as it turns out, I don't think I would have won had Improbable won. Marshall Graham, Jonathan Kinchin, these guys were all over all of these horses. And my sense is I was fighting for maybe third or fourth. You can't really control that. And so we'll get to the strategy later, but you can control what you can control. And if you can see on the leaderboard that things are changing, you may have to adapt your strategy. But once you put up your balance, and look, you could look at this year's leaderboard as an example. When Knicks Go crossed the line first, I knew what balance was on my card. This isn't fake humility. I was scared to death for 15 minutes, hitting reload on the phone, some of these players are incredible and really shrewd. I had no idea if someone smashed that exacta or trifecta. I knew my total was great, but I didn't know if it was great enough. I've kind of made this as a little bit of a standard joke, making fun of myself. Maybe the worst job of handicapping on the weekend I did was in assessing what it would take to win this tournament. In a typical year, you don't even need a calculator. Go back, look at the Breeders' Cup prior winners. They have a page for that, and you can see what it took to win this tournament year after year after year. This isn't scientific. In my mind, it's about $125,000. That should be the target for growing your original $7,500 balance. In the year that my buddy Brad won, someone had put up a higher total than that, and so he needed to pivot in order to get there. There are plenty of people that choose not to do that. And we can get to that aspect of tournament play. Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. We have Michael Bryant joining the show. Michael, appreciate it. Again, we're about to listen. Everyone's got to give Matt a break. He's been talking a lot. I think he likes to talk anyway, I'm guessing, but he's been doing a lot of talking the last 72 hours. And Michael and everyone else, we're about to get into the details of some picks. And just to let everyone know, and I'll let you finish, of course, Matt, your thought here. On the Breeders' Cup BCBC website, and I did confirm this with Tim Schramm, who, by the way, did a fantastic job running the tournament along with Jim Goodwin and other people. I know you lauded their praises and the great job they did on the Steve Bick show, and we all agree with that. You'll be able to see our picks, folks. So listen, if you want to see every single pick that Matt Miller made and every pick that I made and every pick that Jonathan Kinchin made, you'll be able to do that. It is public knowledge. Matt, go ahead and finish your thought that you were saying there.
I have no idea what else I was going to
Okay, that's fine. I'll take some of the blame about that. Let's go ahead and talk now specifically, as I bring up another banner here, about this year's Breeders' Cup. Now, and also in general, and this is why I'm sure a lot of people watching the show, people are sitting there thinking, okay, Matt did it, how can I do it, right? So let's talk specifically, though, about this year's Breeders' Cup. Your strategy first. What was your strategy before the tournament even started?
So I literally work backwards. So I don't know how good of storytelling this turns into, but $125,000 is the goal. I had 2 entries, a little bit embarrassing. I did buy in for both of them. I didn't qualify. Most of those qualifiers, in all honesty, are of the nature of the NHC, which tend to be a little bit more picking than betting strategy. I don't waste my time with them. If you think you're a good picker, those are a phenomenal way to get into this tournament for not a lot of money. For me, I had a feeling I'd be throwing away thousands chasing something that I was going to have to pay for anyway. And so,
do I get extra credit for qualifying in a live money tournament?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It actually is the best way. And Arlington Park used to have one of those. And it was a great tournament. And a good friend of mine won that in one of the early years as well. It's a terrific way to qualify. But look, whether you've had prior scores that will fund your entries, I knew I was buying in with 2 entries, and I knew that the target, at least at the start of the tournament, was $125,000. Working backwards, these tournaments, 100% of the time, in my perception, are won in the last race. I don't really see how you could win one of these losing the last race. The leaderboard changes so dramatically. The reason I didn't care what the leaderboard said once I didn't see anyone over 125 was that, like I said before, you can only control what you can control. I wanted to have a bankroll of somewhere between 30 and 40,000 bucks going into the last race. And yeah, it's a little crazy to talk this way because it is so different than the way I normally exist, but that's an all-in bet. I mean, so the plan was a full push in the last race, hopefully with that amount of money. And sorry to say, there's no spreading. There's no diluting. I would have needed a higher bankroll to be able to afford that, in my opinion. I had a horse that I had been targeting to bet in that last race for a month. I believed with all my heart Knicks Go to be the best horse in the country. I loved all the buzz on Essential Quality and the fact that that became the very it now horse. All that did was bump up my price to a level that absolutely stunned me. And so, again, I'm working backwards, so it's a little bit taking away the punchline. $33,000 to win on Knicks Go was the final play.
Wow.
The question is kind of how I got there. And
so let's talk about that. So do you recall what your total was at the end of day one, and what was a nice score for you on day one to sort of help put you in that position that you wanted to be in?
All right, so I'm going to try and keep this not dense, but it gets a teeny bit complicated. We should talk about minimums first, because I think they play directly into tournament strategy. You have 3 $600 minimums on day one, which are a very big deal, right? This is 600 bucks out of 7,500. It's 600 bucks out of 6,900. It's 600 bucks out of 6,300. And so all of a sudden, I've just done terrible math, by the way, but 5,700. Maybe I should get the calculator.
That's right.
The bottom line is you lose $1,800 on day one and go down to 5,700 bucks if you don't hit something in one of your 3 minimums. That is a crushing percentage of your bankroll to lose. And actually, my advice for anyone where that's what happens, on day 2, even though you haven't hit something, you got to pick it up, because balances are building and you cannot afford to just continue betting small amounts of money. At some point, you need an opinion. So let me get back to Friday for a second. There's 3 minimums. I had one strong opinion on the day, and that horse got scratched. That was Jack Christopher. I don't know exactly what I was going to do with that horse, but it probably would have involved one of my 2 entries going all in. Wow. As it turned out, the horse was scratched. The good news with that scratch was that it left, in my opinion, a very clear winner. The main threat to Jack Christopher was another speed horse from the outside. And in the absence of speed on the rail, I thought Corniche was a lock. 7-5 odds, I don't think makes me a genius for picking this horse, by the way. It was a clear favorite. Let me back up and tell how I got that. So my strategy on Friday was to play 3 minimums on each card. The question is how to do that. And there is a wide variety of thought on the best way. There are people that will put 600 bucks at risk betting to show on a favorite, hoping to get 700 or 800 bucks back, and at least they didn't lose their bankroll. That strategy is not for me. From a risk-reward perspective, these are very full fields of amazing horses. And frankly, I don't know how much easier it is to pick a horse to come in third than it is to come in first. It's hard, and you're going to lose a lot. And if you're going to put your money on the line, I think you need to have some reasonable return back for it. So I am not one. Look, I guess if I was at the end of the tournament and had a ton of money and just needed a minimum, I could have done that. But otherwise, in the beginning, I think you've got to focus on building a bankroll. This tournament offers and most live money tournaments will offer a handful of different types of bets. Win, place, show. Let's just forget place and show for a second. There's win, there's exacta, there's trifecta. that's when you get into a race for first, second, and third, so you're going deep in the race. You're going to hear this theme all night with me. When you bet a trifecta, you need three things to happen. Unless you're hitting the all button for one of those two positions, you need three things. You need to be right about a whole bunch. It's not fake humility. I don't personally feel capable. It's hard enough to pick a winner, let alone to think you've got that good of an angle consistently on exactas and trifectas. I'm willing to go there with exactas and trifectas if that's what my actual opinion is. But in all honesty, my opinion usually focuses on finding a winner.
And it should be fair to it's fair to say, Matt, because I've heard you tell me and recently on podcasts, you're not a huge fan of 2-year-olds, and a lot of people are not because listen, they're babies, they're unpredictable. They you can see buyer swings literally of 20, 25 points from one race to the next. So for you to build that bankroll on day one, which is all 2-year-olds, must be a bit problematic for you.
It's terrible. Look, we're going to talk about the order of the races later. That comes in huge. I don't feel like I'm giving away anything to be proud of when I say that luck does play a major role in this. And I'm going to say that on day 2, which we'll get to, the ordering of the races itself, of the races themselves, ended up being highly determinative of how I ended up doing. But getting back to Friday, if you want to. So I had a strategy of playing $600 daily doubles. And there was a reason for that strategy. So on each entry, sometimes I would take the same horse, sometimes I would take a different horse. It just depended on my relatively weak opinion of the race. But I would play a couple horses into a couple horses in the next race. If I had the good fortune of hitting the first half of the double, this is where the math comes in. You can look at what the probable payout is, do the math, and see how much you have coming back. And at that point, you can decide, do I need to spread a little further? Do I want to pound this horse even harder? So I started playing daily doubles. I'd say, in all honesty, the first big mistake I made on the weekend, I had a semi-strong opinion on Echo Zulu, and I probably should have bet that a little harder. Instead, I just played 2 $600 doubles using that horse into the next race. It might have actually been one with 600 and two with 300, but you get the point. It was 2 doubles with the same horse in the first half with a few different in the second half. When I got to the second half, and I don't remember how many horses were in that race, 12. If you asked me how many horses I felt I needed to be comfortable, I probably would have said 10. I mean, I had no idea. Well, I'm not spreading to 10 horses. That's insane. I picked a couple different horses that I thought had a reasonable chance, and I put them on the first half of new daily doubles. Okay, you guys can tell me how impressive this is. My 4th choice in the race ended up hitting. It was not one of the horses I had on the Echo Zulu daily doubles. It was one of the new daily doubles that I had played.
I believe that was Pizza Bianca in the Philly turf, the juvenile Philly turf. Pizza Bianca, who I'm going to pat myself on the back just for a second, was a top pick on our race day blog and on this show as well. I couldn't believe the 9-1. That was a very wide open race, Matt.
I agree, and that's a terrific pick. I take my hat off to you and whoever picked that horse. I landed on him 4th, her 4th. But okay, I've now got a $600 daily double rolling into Corniche. While I can't say I have the most confidence in 2-year-old races, I felt pretty good about Corniche.
Yep.
And so I didn't really feel a need to hedge that or spread that. When you're playing in units of $600 daily doubles, there was a bit of an overlay with this one, meaning I think it paid a little more than it should have. Even with the 9-1 odds, if you go, and now you got to really do some math, but if you play out what the win parlay would have been, meaning if you put $2 to win on Pizza Bianca, took whatever you got back and put it on Corniche, the daily double actually paid better than that. And look, for me, that was pretty cool. It was nice to get a little extra. I think most of us feel like we're on the short end of that more than the
Sure.
long end of that. Corniche
Anytime
was,
anytime you get an overlay, I mean, and actually, we'll get into my big pick on Saturday. That was an overlay also. Of course, overlay, folks, meaning it was under bet, meaning you got value. And that gave you what total? I don't think you bet you were you had Corniche. I don't think you bet or a very small amount, if any, on the last race, which was the Modern Games debacle. And so, what was your total at the end of day one, if you can recall, approximately?
25,000. So that
Uh,
double paid 18, and I had maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 on that entry at the time. So it was right maybe in the 24s, 25s. And I walked out of there delighted. You know, again, a little bit of math. $600 minimums coming out of 7,500 look wildly different than 600 coming out of 25,000. And so those minimums go from a serious drain to just a bit of a nuisance. But look, the strategy continued into day 2. I didn't have any real strong opinions early in
Sorry
the
to
day.
interrupt you, Matt. If we could just answer the question on the bottom of the screen before we get into day 2. Tom Espinosa is a great viewer of this show. I see you chuckling already because, I mean, you're not like a deep dive handicap guy. Just very briefly, how do you handicap the races? Very briefly, what
Yeah,
tools?
very cynical. I use the daily racing form and a pen. I will, for the Breeders' Cup, listen to a handful of podcasts, usually on the In the Money Network with Pete Fornatail. I get enough information from that. And look, I'm not just writing down their picks and picking them. I'm listening to what they have to say, and I can tell which horses are going to be overbet, which ones are getting not enough attention. And so I use the racing form to actually handicap the races. If I held this up closer, you would see little notes on who Nick Luck likes or who Pete liked or who Drew Coatney picked. Those guys all had a nice share of winners, by the way. The trick is to figure out which ones to stick with. Okay, Howard, you too. You had a
Nah, I'm just kidding. Listen, if you didn't if you didn't see my podcast, I'm sort of new on the scene, since January. I'm just giving you crap. No, no worries.
Well, it's funny. I watched the podcast after, and I admit I was pretty impressed.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
But yeah,
All right, so
I
let's get
don't
on date.
subscribe to anything else. I don't, I don't want to name any particular product because I
Sure.
don't want to disparage it. But I've actually come to believe that these products, to some degree, are self-defeating. And by that, I mean, the more people that subscribe to them, the more that get the same information, I do think it starts leading to a degree of groupthink that is not helpful. And I very much want to be a contrarian. Even with this daily racing form, I print it out before the morning lines are available. I don't even want to get influenced by that. I want to just make my own picks, have my own sense of what these horses should be. Look, then I inject the morning line, and it's a nice little check to see, wow, I had this horse at 20-1, and the guy in the morning line has him at 3-1. What am I missing? Or what's he missing? And
Sure.
he's a human being too. So, but the bottom line is, to answer the question, pen and paper, just like the old way.
So let's get into the crux of day 2 because I have some 10 minutes to post questions, and then we're going to get a little bit into my picks as well. Of course, you're welcome to stay on for that. So day 2, you're in your position, and folks, I will say I didn't spend as much time with Matt on Friday. I'll even talk about. We'll talk a little later, like how I hadn't even met Matt until this weekend. It's a crazy funny story, our relationship. Which really technically began. I got to do the math, like 36 years ago. We didn't even know it, but we'll get into that in a minute. I was front and center, folks, to Matt Miller's journey on Saturday. I was with him most of the day. We weren't watching the races together. I was a bit superstitious for reasons I'll get into, and you had your spot. But let's get right into day 2. I can flat out say, folks, that someone got up to 70,000 plus actually on day 1, which is absolutely absurd. But even on day 1 and throughout day 2, Matt's like, Howard, don't he was around like a 30,000 ish. Matt's like, don't worry. I'm thinking to myself, I'm crazy. He's crazy. He's already 40,000 behind. I can flat out verify All honesty, I was there. Matt said, Howard, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Talk about the last few races, and then, of course, your final decision, which you already touched on.
Yeah, so I bumped along betting some $600 doubles. Maybe some of those were win bets. I don't think I did any exactas or tries the whole tournament. And so it's funny. I'm literally flipping program pages. I didn't feel great about any of the races until the middle of the card, and this is where I probably get a little bit hard to relate to. I had a bankroll of $25,000 going into day one, and I had a sole objective of getting to the last race with between 30 and 35 grand. And so what would you do to go from 20 to 35 grand? It sounds so simple now that I'm saying it. I looked at the entirety of the day's card. I thought there were two mortal locks on the day. Life is Good and Jackie's Warrior. By the way, I was dead wrong about one of them. And if people don't want to admit to there being luck involved in this tournament, Life is Good came first and went off at 3 to 5. 24,000 to win at 3 to 5 was going to put me exactly where I wanted to be. And so I saw no reason to wait for Jackie's Warrior. I felt equally great about both of these picks. Life is Good. You know, Brad, I appreciated the mention in the column there. Life is Good. The horse was unbelievable. He won by daylight. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Most people probably didn't figure that anybody scored big on that. Right. Again, I had a very specific objective. And while I would never in my normal life bet $24,000 to win on a horse or make a large win bet on a 3 to 5 shot, typically, in this context, that's all I needed. And so when that horse hit, Howard, I looked at you, I looked at Brad, I looked at Joe and said, I'm good. I don't care what this leaderboard says unless some crazy person gets above 100 and a quarter. But otherwise, I'm going to bleed $600 a race for a few more races. Odds are I'm probably not going to hit anything, and I didn't. That wasn't sabotage. I was trying my hardest. I just didn't get anything. But sure enough, the story takes a little bit of an odd twist when we get to the second to last race. That was the only time all day that I did something other than these little minimums. I realized that I had enough of a balance, and I was able to tell when you look at the daily double probables, you can imply the odds on the horse in the next race. And I could tell that Essential Quality was getting hammered in these doubles. That wasn't my pick. That gave me a lot of confidence that I was going to get the price I wanted on Knicks Go. And figuring now that I'm going to be getting somewhere in the range of 3 to 1, I thought I could afford a shot for a few $1,000 trying to hit some kind of a cool daily double from the turf into the classic. I think the horse's name was Walton Street. It was probably an 8 to 1 shot. I don't remember the exact dollar amount. Maybe a $3,000 or $4,000 double into Knicks Go. And the hope was if Walton Street can win this race, now I'm alive to a big score to Knicks Go, and I can then use the remaining 33 grand on another horse. Maybe that, under the circumstances, that probably would have been Hot Rod Charlie. I'm not totally sure. It wasn't meant to be. Walton Street loses, and I'm now sitting fine. I have 33. This is exactly what I wanted. Look, after Knicks Go wins the race, all that I know is that my balance now is absurd. It's 140 something $1,000. Never done anything like that in my life. You still don't know in this tournament what that is going to mean. That could have easily been second, third, fifth place, probably not much less than that. It's frankly a pretty high total. But the reality is you don't know until the results flash. I was a little surprised, in all honesty, to see that second place went down to 95,000. It was a very tough Breeders' Cup, in my opinion, which actually helps to explain why I ended up doing so well. The reality is, on a lot of these races, I didn't know what I was doing. I don't love betting 2-year-olds. These Europeans come over here with such hype and with such low odds. I don't know how to handicap European form like I do US form. And so this was a lot about picking your spots. And
Sure.
it wasn't that hard on Saturday morning to say, do you think Life is Good is going to win? I mean, I think most people would have said, yeah, probably.
Uh, you
That's
told
really
me
all I needed.
you told me talk you don't get in details, but you had very deep thoughts Saturday morning about what to do. Can you just tell the folks just as much as you'd like about that
Yes, sir.
that decision you had to make
Um,
Saturday morning?
sure. Jumped in the shower on Saturday morning, had a quick one-way conversation with Grandpa Mike, who's been gone for a while, and then made a decision that I'm not getting out of this shower until I know exactly what I'm going to do today.
Wow.
And I know it sounds simple now. Like, why don't you just put it all on a 3-to-5 shot? Look, at the time, that didn't just appear magically.
Sure.
There is kind of a natural inclination to look at all the races and try and pick all the winners. Right. I am very conscious of how hard this is. I don't think it is possible to win this tournament betting big money every race. I just don't think anyone is good enough to consistently hit these things. Yeah. You've got to pick your spots. You got to take your strong opinions and you got to hit them. And you got to not expose yourself to big risk when you don't have big opinions.
Well,
It sounds simple now, but that's all it was.
Matt, I think you're going to enjoy this little surprise for you, folks. Let's relive the final about 1 minute of Nick's Go winning the 2021 Breeders' Cup Classic and eventually giving Mr. Matt Miller the BCBC Championship. Let's just watch and enjoy with sound, Matt. Here we go.
Awesome.
Essential Quality has come under a ride as they make their way to the top of the stretch. It is Nick's Go, and he's going to try to take him the distance here. Nick's Go comes wide for the stretch drive. Hot Rod Charlie on the inside is second, and then comes Medina Spirit, Art Collector, and Essential Quality into the final furlong, and it is Nick's Go. Nick's Go has a 2.5 length lead. Medina Spirit, Hot Rod Charlie, Essential Quality. Nick's Go, a superstar, wins the Breeders' Cup.
I mean, do you have? I have chills right now, and I didn't even win the damn thing.
Yeah. Look, I texted my family ahead of the race and said, when you bet on a front runner, here's what you want to see.
Yeah.
A clean break, get to hopefully an unharassed lead, and we can talk about that in Medina Spirit if you want. And otherwise, I don't know who it was that taught me this. You watch the hands of the jockey, and if the jockey hasn't been doing much with those hands before turning for home and then starts pumping, you got a pretty good shot if you're in the front of the race at that point. And if you went back, I don't expect you to, but if you go back and watch, Rosario waited until very late to start pushing. And I got to tell you, I thought I was money in the bank the entire stretch. I don't normally have that kind of confidence, but this was the fastest, best horse in the world who was allowed to take it his own way the whole way through.
Yeah, there's two great questions. Tom, I see your question, District 13. I'm going to bring you both your questions up in a minute. So very briefly, I was watching most of the races over the weekend on the fourth floor. I had binocs. It was a great view. When they came out, the first quarter was 23 and something, and I saw that Medina Spirit did not get out of the gate fantastically. I know you were thinking the same thing as I was, and probably a bunch of people at home. This thing's over. And at the top of the stretch, when Nick's Go went wide, which you've talked about on show, we're not going to get into all the details of the race, but the being on the outside was probably the better part of the track all weekend. Because I did have Hot Rod Charlie, I'll get into my pick. Just for a second, Hot Rod Charlie maybe was gaining, I don't know, a half a length, maybe a little bit on the inside. And it was probably wishful thinking, Matt, because I had Hot Rod Charlie. But really, the race was absolutely never in doubt. Before I bring up these questions, Matt, and I hope I'm not going to get too emotional here, tell me your first thought after you crossed the wire, and then also give us your first thought about, what was it, a good 10-minute wait after you had checked your phone to see that you had won the entire tournament.
So I think the people with me can attest to this. I was so focused on 125,000 and then 140 something thousand. I got to tell you, all I could think about was, I can't believe this plan came together this way. And all I kept saying was, I've done all I can. I mean, I don't think it would have been reasonable to target a higher number than I had. And yet you just don't know. And so for 10 minutes, and that's not a complaint, it takes some time for this all to compute.
Yeah.
You're hitting reload on a final leaderboard. Yeah, look, when that leaderboard popped up that I was first, this is going to sound stupid, I was still focused on 140 something thousand. And so, we eventually walked to the area where they handed me the big check. And it was at that moment where I saw the first number on that check and was just blown away. This was not about the prize money until they handed me the prize money. Until then, it was really about the strategy of building, I'm going to just call them points. And we can talk about the theory of this being a game and not real money. But that is my approach to this, is that when you are in the context of one of these contests, you are really hurting yourself to think of these as real dollars. Because these real dollars are much larger than most of us ever touch and play with. And it's easy to get very scared and look, you've now listened to how I've done this. You have to ask yourself, would you have had the ability to do that? And if the answer is no, look, I'm not trying to be negative on anybody, but this may not be the tournament for you.
Just leading to your comment, District 13. I think you mentioned it, but just one more time, your final bet was
33,000. My entire bankroll. There was a 0% chance I would leave $1 there.
And what was the total? I think I stepped on you. Let me stop talking. I think I stepped on your voice there.
No, that's okay. 33,000 to win, and I'm cheating because I'm looking at the leaderboard on the right, and it finished with 142,800.
Okay. Now it's public knowledge. He finished with 140. The first prize was 400,000. That check that he's talking about, folks, somewhere in the range of $543,000. Unbelievable. Some questions we have. Tom Espinoza, as a native California, you won that morning shower. Listen, you're taking away water from people in California. It wasn't that long. Don't worry, Tom. From a lawyer, Jeff wants to thank you. You can read his comment there. Just talks about judiciousness and that luck is the residue of design. Is it not?
So I put it a little different. I like that expression. I constantly, and it's not just in the horse racing world, talk about putting yourself in a position for good things to happen to you. And that's really what this was. All right, let's keep. We have other questions?
Yeah, no. So here's what I think, Matt, if you don't mind, because do you have about 15 minutes?
You bet.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Very briefly, let's talk about some of what happened to me. Because a lot of people ask me, Howard, so I'm not going to go through every pick, folks. You can watch that. So very briefly, you mentioned Friday. By the way, again, everyone watching, my first time ever being in the BCBC. Matt gave himself letter grades. I consider myself, I think I'm a pretty good handicapper. B+, A-. I'm not saying I'm the best. I think I'm pretty good. As a ticket constructor, better. Early in my years, when I first started, I was awful. I think I've moved up to the BB- range in terms of ticket construction. That being said, folks, the BCBC, as Matt has explained, is a whole other animal. When I came into this, I was hoping, again, you start with 7,500. I qualified for this tournament. Listen, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a teacher. So I qualified for the tournament. No disrespect to anyone that bought in for two entries. What was my goal, Matt? I mean, I thought if I could get, like $30,000-$40,000. I thought that'd be amazing. I mean, to think that you're going to win the whole thing as a rookie with 543 of the best handicappers in the world would be insane and completely arrogant. So obviously my goals were different. I'm more confident with 2-year-olds and Euros because I spend a lot of time looking at breeding and watch literally 50 replays on the Euros and the Japanese. Let's not forget about them because that's a big play in my story as well. So I was pretty cautious, though, on Friday. I do agree with Matt. My stronger opinions were on Saturday. My big mistake, I didn't have a big play. I pretty much bet 3 minimums for the most part, maybe slightly more. I think I could have minimum bet 1,800, folks. I think I bet about 2,200 total. Did not cash one ticket. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, folks. It's going to be public knowledge. You can take a look at it. My big regret, Matt, was I loved command performance for 2 weeks leading to the Breeders' Cup. The minute I saw Jack Christopher scratch, which I think, don't quote me in this, I think it was the night before I think that scratch happened, I became very stubborn. I will readily admit it was a mistake. I played a big double and some other bets with command performance, even though I had said that night to the person that I was staying with at the hotel and that morning that Bob Baver's going to win this race now. Bob Baver's going to win this race now. I got stubborn. I love the horse. I stuck with it, thinking, well, if this horse wins and I went off it, I'm going to, be real upset with myself. I should have adjusted. Big mistake. Actually, I thought he ran real well. That's a whole other story. He was 4 or 5 wide the entire race. Anyway, I went into Saturday, folks, with about 5,200. Actually, a little more than that. It was, let me do the math here. It was more like 50. Yeah, it was about 5,200 actually. It made one minimum play that left you with about 5,000, 4,600, 4,700. And Matt, this is where I'd love to get your opinion. I had 4,600 left, folks. I was in I don't know. There was 540 entries. I was in 320th place, whatever it was. Folks, I had a very strong opinion that everyone on this podcast knows. And that strong opinion was I thought Life is Good was the best horse of the entire weekend. Euros, Americans. I just thought he was an absolute monster. I decided this is where I have to shove. And I'm proud that I made a decision that Matt agreed with, where at some point you got to take a stand. This was my stand. I made a $2,500 double. And I'm chuckling right now because, folks, full disclosure, the biggest bet I've ever made, ever, before the BCBC was a late pick 5 ending in the Arlington Million on Million Day. It's always one of my biggest plays. Man, I think it was like a $700 play I made a few years ago. And by the way, I was alive to one horse for 60,000. Didn't come in, of course, but that was literally, Matt, my biggest bet I've ever made. $700 bet. So you talk about some of these, absurd amounts that we're betting. I'm at the machine. I'm pressing 2-5 because there's no automatic 2,500 on the machine, right? I'm betting 2-5-0-0 double. I see it. I'm like, holy blank. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? This is freaking crazy. My double was Life is Good to Love's Only You. I loved Love's Only You. I know a Japanese horse had never won a Breeders' Cup race. I loved her back form. I thought it was between her and Love, who is the 6 horse, Brian. I really didn't see anyone else winning that race. I took a stand. Life is Good wins, of course. I'll tell my quick story, folks. Absolutely true. As some of you know who are watching, my father passed away 4 years ago on Breeders' Cup Day, Saturday at Del Mar. Crazy enough, 4 years later, the date wasn't exactly the same, but the date was a few days off. But anyway, 4 years later, I'm standing at Del Mar. And 4 years ago, I was at an OTB in Chicago. But 4 years later, I'm at Del Mar. Literally, Matt, this is absolutely true. Literally a few minutes of time away that I got a phone call from hospice, unfortunately, that my father had passed. The race was about to go off for Love's Only You. I don't believe in karma much or, superstition. If that was a sign, I don't know what it was. I looked into the heavens, Matt, and said, come on, Dad, do this for me. Watch the whole race. And if you just would allow me, Matt, because you had your thrill, let's my biggest score ever, Love's Only You, coming through for me, folks. And I'll tell you the dollar amount. Again, this was a $2,500 double. Thank you to this horse for giving me my thrill of a lifetime, especially due to the circumstances. Love's Only You winning the 2021 Filly and Mare Turf.
Warlike Goddess is moving quickly. She's moving right now, and she's moving to the lead as they come to the top of the stretch. A 5-wide rally by Warlike Goddess and Julian Leparoux. They've taken the lead. My sister Nat follows that run. Love battles on from the inside. It is Warlike Goddess in front. On the inside, Love. On the outside, my sister Nat. Love's Only You is coming. Here comes Love's Only You to win it for Japan.
I'm going to back it up a second, Matt. So I'm watching this race. So let me turn the actually the sound's off. Sorry. I'm watching the race from the fourth floor, and I don't know if you saw this, folks, but I was a little worried because she took quite a big steady. I think there's going to be sound. I apologize. Let me turn the sound off. I think she took. I don't know if we're going to see the steady. You saw right there. She studied. She was the 8 horse right there. Steady back, got shuffled back. This is Warlike Goddess, Matt, on the outside, who got the jump. And I'm watching through a binocs. I'm like, oh man, this is not going to happen. However, as you watch this continues on, she's in the green silks right there. I saw that she was still sort of hanging around. I'm like, maybe. And right here, right about here, I'm like, you know what? She's got a shot. Just find a hole. Please, Dad, give me a hole. And I'm watching, and I didn't say a word, by the way. Not a word. Right there. Matt, I'm one of the, I don't know about you. I'm pretty quiet during watching races. I think you are also, you told me. I literally did not say a word. There's, 50 people around me standing and watching. And right about here, listen, I was yelling like a fool. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, come on, get there, blah, blah, blah. And right about here, and this is only a few strides before the wire, really, I knew I got it. And so what happened to me, Matt? Well, I'll tell you what happened, folks. What happened? Let me turn this off. Uh, this we talked about overlays. The Life is Good, Loves Only You double was paying 8.6 to 1. So, between 8 to 9 to 1. Life is Good, I thought, was an absolute cinch. I would have been shocked if he lost. Loves Only You, I believe was 4 to 1. So again, if you do the math, I felt like I was getting twice the value, and I saw the doubles, and I knew that Loves Only You, Matt, was not going to be the favorite. So if you were to tell me, in my mind, if I'm getting 8.5 to 1 on Loves Only You, in hindsight, maybe I should have just gone all in. But I did have some stronger opinions after that. So Matt, just talk very briefly. Obviously, it worked out. Do you like that strategy? Not because it worked out, but do you like that I spent half of my bankroll on a strong opinion at that point of the tournament?
I love that strategy. I love the daily double instead of the win odds for sure. You definitely got a better return. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This might be one of the cases for having two entries, because I would have, hearing your opinions, I would have loved to see you push all in on that double. I don't think you were taking big risk on Life is Good at all. And to be pushing all in on what you considered a very strong opinion would have been great. Here's the other hard part of these tournaments. You're out of town. You're at a racetrack for a long day. No one wants to run out of money, at the end of day one or early on day two. So that really shouldn't make a difference. And yet, if we're being honest, it kind of does, because I'm going to bet, Howard, without knowing for sure, but that probably factored into what your play was, that you didn't want to just be out if it lost. It's a rough day for the rest of the day if you've got absolutely nothing going.
I respect what you said. There was a very small part of me, but that was only a small part, Matt, because I really had strong opinion in the turf, which I was wrong about. So, and so I will say that factored a little bit into it, just so everyone knows. 2,500 times 8.6, that gave me a $21,500 win plus the 2,500 to bet. I went from 300 and, 43rd up to 13th place. So after that race, folks, I had $24,000 on the leaderboard, and I was 13th place out of 545. And I talked to, a friend of mine, and we were saying, you know what? I could win the whole damn thing. I mean, I was absolutely possible to win the whole damn thing. It didn't work out for me. Joe's got a great point here that you talked about a little bit, that this, if you split your bets, you're losing equity that ended up costing him. You don't have to comment on that. I just wanted to show that because which sort of goes off of your opinion of I should have just gunned it. Getting into day two. Let me just finish, and then we'll get to the 10 minutes of post and end the segment, end the show. One of my biggest regrets, Matt, of the entire weekend was not to take that extra 2,500 and go from Loves Only You to Aloha West. I loved Aloha West. I will readily admit, folks, listen, I'm not going to BS you at home or Matt. I thought Aloha West was very interesting. I could not put $2,500 bet on Aloha West, Matt, because I just thought Jackie's Warrior was too good. In hindsight, I should have done something something, 600, anything. Because the Love's Only You, Aloha West Double was huge. And if I had done even 600, Matt, I would have been right with you, like 40, 38, 40,000, whatever. I mean, I would have been right there. So not only would it give me a chance to win the whole thing, but nothing wrong with collecting another 14,000 in your pocket. So that was a regret. Long story short, folks, I'm going to end my day or my betting here. I liked Hot Rod Charlie. What I did is I decided, Matt, this is the last question I'm going to ask you in terms of my betting. I was up to, I lost some races going into the last race. I had about 17,000 left going to the last race. Start with 7,500. Normally, if you're up 10,000, for a day, that would be an unbelievable day for me. I decided and calculated with my math skills and Dutching principles and stuff that we're not going to have time to get into. I didn't think I could win the whole thing, Matt, realistically. I had a strong opinion on Hot Rod Charlie, but really, Nick's Go obviously could have won. Essential Quality could have won. Even a horse like Max Player wasn't impossible. There were just too many things in that race that could have gone wrong for me. So I made a calculation that the best I can do is, or I was hoping to do, is win another like 50, 60,000, end up with about 70,000 total for a bankroll, and then come in like, sixth, seventh place, which would give me another 60, 70,000, end up with about 150K. Matt, how do you feel about my strategy about not going all in on 17,000 due to the fact I believed I couldn't win the whole thing?
You could have won the whole thing. It's just a question of how much risk you would have had to take to do it. And look, I'm not trying to get into your head too much. You won your entry, and so you won $10,000 to get into this thing. I have massive respect for someone that knows themselves well enough to say, look, I want to walk out of here with 10 grand, or I want to walk out of here with 5 grand. I don't know that that's the best strategy for someone trying to win. It's a decent strategy for someone trying to be responsible and to put themselves in a position for, maybe not first on the leaderboard, but as you look down the board, look, maybe your regret is you could have done a little bit more, because as I'm looking at the prize money, okay, 10th place was 37,000. I don't think that was that outrageous to get to.
No.
But look, these are the lessons we learn. This was especially your first BCBC is tough. And look, you sit next to someone who's done a few of these and you realize, wow, there's a lot to learn here. Yeah, maybe you underbet it a little bit. Maybe you could have had that double a little bit. But at the end of the day, you have to know yourself. And if you're not the kind of person that's going to be comfortable with some big, massive bet, not that I'm super comfortable, but at least I was comfortable with my entry fee buying me into a game, and I was willing to play the game to win and just kind of wait to the end until it turned back into real money.
Yeah.
I have full respect for someone that's looking at it as real money throughout.
Well, what came to my calculation was I was betting folks, you'll see it. You can find out. I bet 30 different weight exactas. The biggest one was $3,100. Hot Rod Charlie to Essential Quality. I also had Hot Rod Charlie to Nick's Go. I had a few different combinations, mainly with Hot Rod Charlie or Essential Quality on top, and I weighed them differently, folks, so that no matter what happened, if I was right, I would end up with about 75,000 bankroll for the tournament. Didn't work out. I can sleep at night. It's absolutely fine. I took a risk. It didn't work out. Congratulations, though, Matt, for yours. Do you have 5 minutes for our 10 minutes to post segment?
You bet.
All right. Folks, it's a famous segment. I love it. We're going to find just a little more, we'll have a little more fun, more lighthearted with Matt Miller. 10 minutes to post. 10 minutes to post. 10, we'll make this real rapid fire, Matt, because we are going a little late. I don't want to keep you much longer. You can literally 5-second answers or longer. It's up to you. 5 horse racing questions, 5 non-horse racing questions, and then we'll bid the night. Here we go. First question. What was the first moment you fell in love with horse racing?
First pick 6. I don't remember the year, but it was maybe 20 years ago, and it was a nice 5-figure score. I would say that's how I fell into love with horse racing in the modern era. I would say otherwise, I'm back to Grandpa Mike and $2 win bet.
Sure. Best advice you received on successful contest play and from whom? This is like the 60-minute. This isn't Steve Bick. This isn't PTF. This is serious, hard-hitting 60 minutes of horse racing here.
This is good. Best advice I got on contest play was, in fact, from PTF. Pete has been very, very good and articulate in explaining the differences between contests that are very top-heavy, like this one, and those that have a flatter prize structure. And so understanding the contest you're in, understanding the value of the reward you're getting for the risk you're taking, it's critical to understanding the structure. So I'm going to point to Pete. I'm going to apologize to Pete in advance. I've read a couple of his books. One of them is on tournament strategy, and it's a good one.
Yeah, I would recommend you folks look that up because I've read that book as well. It's fantastic. Bucket list track or race day event you'd like to attend in the world that you've never been to?
This is a shocking answer. It's the Kentucky Derby. I've never been. My wife and I have talked about it for years. Maybe this is what we'll do with some of the money, but we've always talked about doing it right. I want to sit next to Tom Brady and Dave Portnoy. I want to go to the cool area, the Millionaires Row. And yeah, I haven't really found a way to do that yet. It's all kind of expensive, and maybe this is the year I can kind of justify doing it.
I'm going to just take a wild stab and say you can afford it. So, by the way, I've never been to the Kentucky Derby either. I'm not going to be able to price it Millionaires Row, but maybe we can work something out. We'll talk off air. That's obviously on my bucket list as well. So obviously, let's put Nick's Go out of. Let's take that out of the equation. Other than this past weekend, God, it feels like it was 2 weeks ago. It's crazy. It's been a whirlwind for me too. 72 hours here. I'm on fumes, to be honest. Other than the Knicks Go, what was the best or most memorable horse racing event you've attended?
I don't want to be insensitive to you personally. That 2017 Breeders' Cup was it for me. Stormy Liberal in particular at 30-1, exploding that pick 5 was just crazy. So
that's not insensitive at all. Absolutely no worries. Completely understand. I guess we'll say Knicks Go.
Come on.
Okay. All right. 5 non-horse racing questions. Here we go. Best or most memorable non-horse racing sports event you'd ever attended?
White Sox World Series 2005, standing with my brother. Unbelievable experience. I've been blessed with Blackhawks championships. I got to see one of those cups lifted live, but I'd say that White Sox World Series game was it. Game 1.
Name something about yourself that most people would be surprised to know.
I'm highly risk averse. I know that sounds preposterous right now, but the reality is I'm highly risk averse.
Wow.
I don't mind taking risk when I think it's kind of quarantined and set off, but otherwise in normal life, I'm a pretty careful person.
You'll have to give people a little background on this question because most people have no idea what this question's about. Bigger rival, Highland Park or Glenbrook North? And tell people why I'm asking the question. I'll let you tell the very short reason why I even bring that up.
So we both grew up in Deerfield, and so those are obviously the schools that Deerfield would fight the hardest with in football and basketball.
Those are high schools, folks. Those are high schools.
Those are high schools. The bigger rival was definitely Highland Park, in my opinion, although Glenbrook North's pretty formidable too, but I think in our hearts we knew it was Highland Park all along.
And just so people know, this is absolutely true. I mean, I can't make this up, folks. PTF told me I was going to be introduced to Matt Miller last weekend. And I'm thinking to myself, Matt Miller, that name just sounds so familiar. Folks, long story short, Matt and I, as he said, we both went to the same high school. Matt graduated the year before me, and his younger brother, his younger brother is friends and went in the same fraternity as my younger brother. So I knew of Matt in high school. I'm sure our paths crossed a bunch of times, but we obviously hadn't kept up since high school. It was so crazy when we put 2 and 2 together that myself and my brother and Matt and his brother had a relationship, way back in high school. Just crazy. Favorite athlete growing up? 2 more questions.
Michael Jordan, no doubt about it. It was the best thing of all time to be living in Chicago for that.
Last question, Matt, and I cannot thank you enough, for being on the show and telling us your strategies. And I just want to say, Matt's been very wonderful with his time. He's been doing a lot of podcasts, been very busy. And the second thing I want to say is there's different ways to win a tournament, folks. Matt would be the first one to say, this is how I did, I being Matt, this is how he did it. This is what works best for him. There's many ways to skin a cat, so to speak. If you listen to this and think, wow, I can't do that or that's not going to work, fine. There's other people other than Matt Miller that have won the BCBC, but I think it's very important to learn different strategies and you take all that information and you do what you think is best. And speaking of that, Matt, whether it be horse racing or not, do you have any future goals or aspirations you'd like to share with the audience?
This is a terrible answer. I got to tell you, I just got it on Saturday, and so I need to reformulate a new one at this point. This was quite literally the prize on the entire planet that I would have chosen to win. Some people want to win on Jeopardy, and some people want whatever. For me, this contest is the absolute test of what I love doing the most. So the BCBC is it.
Matt Miller, it's been a pleasure. Usually I take my guests off the screen and make a few final comments. That feels disrespectful. I'm going to leave you on as I close the show, folks. You can see on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, folks. We're not going to have a podcast. I think without sounding arrogant, I deserve it. It's been a very long stretch of podcasts and extra work for me. And frankly, I'm going to sleep very well this weekend, Matt. Probably not betting anything at all. So, folks, my next broadcast will be a week from tomorrow. I hope to have a guest on. We'll be talking about pick five for the next weekend. And of course, if you are subscribed to my Race Day blog, of course, I'll be sending a blog out this weekend, pick fours, pick fives, and selections throughout the country. Matt Miller, it's been a real pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We wish you good luck in the future and best wishes to you and your family as well.
All right. And you too. This was great.
Thanks a lot. Everyone, this has been episode 94 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I've been your host, Howard Kravitz. I really hope you've been enjoying the show. This show will be on my YouTube channel in two different places, under the betting strategies section and also under the live a live show as well. So if you go to my YouTube page, you'll find this show actually in two places, so you don't have to dig deep to find it in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great evening. We'll see you a week from Thursday. Bye-bye.